Thank you for joining us today for this workshop, Being Prepared in Case of Emergencies, presented by Hannah Salamon, an emergency management specialist, and Sarah Fink, the Director of Emergency Management on campus, and sponsored by Work-Life Wellbeing at the University of Kentucky. Hannah, would you like to introduce yourself and get started?
Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah Salamon. I am the emergency management specialist here on campus. So we'll get a little bit more into that and what emergency management is and what our team does. But a little background on myself. I moved here to Kentucky in the end of January for this job specifically. Before that, I lived and grew up in South Florida. So emergencies are definitely um, not new to me, especially if you take into consideration hurricanes. I then went and did my bachelor's at Tulane University in New Orleans, and did that in public health. Um, Realized after taking a couple classes that I wanted to go the emergency management route and went and got my master's in disaster management at Tel Aviv University in Israel. And then I ended up here. Um, so thank you all for having me. We're going to talk a little bit about home preparedness and how you can be prepared in your home, in your family, by yourself, anything that can help you prepare for, hopefully, never happens, but for an emergency in the future. So get started. Okay, so I fall underneath the Crisis Management and Preparedness Division of the University of Kentucky Police Department. So that is underneath the branch of administration within UKPD, and it's headed up by our administration major, Major Logan Steele. Um, this graphic kind of just shows you a little bit about how it's all laid out. We have our healthcare emergency management. Um, and then also that falls under crisis management and preparedness. And then we have our Clery component, which is our like record keeping for federal regulations with MPD. And then our campus emergency management, which would be the EOC director, and then myself as emergency management specialist. Our emergency management director, Sarah Fink, is currently hosting a training, so she might be able to hop on at the end, but she is busy. So. Continuing on. So, what is crisis management and preparedness? Because that's kind of a bit of a mouthful and it can encompass quite a few things. So, the in 2004 of August, UKPD created the Division of Emergency Management. Um, and then in November of 2011, they revamped it to kind of include different components of what it is now and had expanded it to crisis management and preparedness to get away from only just emergency management and all the other things that we do. So CMP includes emergency management, which is what I do, University of Kentucky Healthcare Emergency Management, which was added on in 2019, the Center for Disaster Recovery and Resilience, or CDR, which covers a lot of our grant funding and insurance claims for after an emergency happens. They work quite a bit with FEMA and the federal and state governments to get those reimbursements and make sure that they're getting all like insurances covered. And then we have our Clery compliance. So I think you guys just saw our annual safety report just come out. So that is all handled by Clery. And that's also a federal regulation just to track crime statistics and emergency statistics on campus. Okay. So, and then campus emergency management, I had already said, but just brief overview, we have Sarah Fink as the Director of Emergency Management, and then myself as our emergency management specialist. Okay, so now what we came here for, how to prepare your home and family. So I think you could really get into the weeds with this topic because there's a lot of things that you can do to prepare your home and your family or yourself. But I like to break it up into three really simple steps. One, create a family emergency plan. That family can include a partner, children, parents, or it can be yourself. Like for me, my family plan right now is just myself and my dog. But the two of us are a family and we have a plan. And then the second step would be build an emergency kit. Um, I think it's always handy to have something on hand that you can just grab and go in case something happens with everything that is necessary. And then three, practice your plan. I can't express that enough. It's so important to practice these things because you don't want to find yourself in a situation where, say, you get an emergency evacuation notice and you're not home, but say your husband's home or your wife's home or your children are home and you don't have that knowledge before on where to meet up or what to do in that situation. Okay, so to get into each of these parts, we're going to start off first with our create a family emergency plan. So throughout this, you're going to see screenshots of a family plan, which is one that I made when I was still living back at home with my family. And this is just going to kind of give you ideas, templates, outlines, but we'll get more into that. But that's what you will see on the screen. So to create your family emergency plan, I think you need to take some considerations into mind. First of all, know the area that your home is in and the likely hazards and vulnerabilities in your community. We live in Fayette County, at least right here, we're in Fayette County, whether you live in a different county. Make sure you know what those vulnerabilities are. So for here, for example, we're very known for our karst topography, right? So we got to make sure for sinkholes and tornadoes. What about severe winter weather, streamlined winds? So it's important to take all that information into account when creating your plan because you don't want to plan for, like, say, a hurricane when the likelihood of a hurricane coming here is very slim to none. Um, and there's also other things that you can plan for too. If you live in a neighborhood that's having a high burglary rate, that's something that you can plan for. It doesn't need to be these crazy, outlandish disasters that we see in the news. It can be your everyday thing, whether it's a kitchen fire or burglary. Know what's important to your family, but also know what's likely to happen in those big case emergencies. And then also establish who and what this plan is for. Is it what compromises or what comprises your family? Is it yourself? Is it Are there five of you? Two of you? Is it you and an animal? It can be anything, but know who is going to be included in this plan and who should know this plan. Also take into consideration if you have children, you're going to need things for small children that somebody who's an elderly couple might not need. If there's mobility issues, if there's accessibility issues, these are all things that can be added in and adjust your plan to make it specific for you. And then also, what is this plan for? Is this for the big case disasters? Is this for everyday occurrences that might happen, whether like a small kitchen fire? Um, is this something that you're going to want to, if you have small kids, is this something you're going to want to give to babysitters so that they have this for them? So I think those two are some really good aspects to think about when you're making this plan on who you want this for and who you want to be able to understand it as well. And then something I always consider is to make extra copies of your plan. Typically, we like to keep all of our stuff on our computer now. But I think it's always smart to print out a couple copies, put one in your emergency kit. I used to have one in my kitchen. Just kind of keep them a little all over the place so that you always have one good and ready to go. So, what can you include in your family plan? This kind of outlines some of what I would put in my family plan. Remember, this is just guidelines. This is a completely personalizable. Sorry, hard word. And so you can include anything you want, anything you don't want, you don't have to include. But some important things I think were personal identifying information, name, contact information. I like to put anything medical. So if you have had a surgery or if you're on any medications, putting that on there just in case the fact that if something happens to you and say your neighbor finds you or your kid finds you and the EMS comes, they can just be handed that piece of paper and be like, this is the medication she's on. These are past hospitalizations, just something to keep everything in one place that if you might not be able to give that information yourself. Again, household needs. If you have anybody in your household with mobility issues, accessibility issues, to write that down as well, just so to make anybody who sees this plan aware of those and that they can keep it in their back of their mind in case something happens. Um, I think putting emergency contact information is quite important for people outside of your household. Um, Name, phone number, address, relation to you. That way, you always have that information in one spot, and you can all, if you have a household with multiple people in it, you can all agree on an emergency contact. Um, and then hazard specific family plans. We'll get a little bit more into this, but like I was saying before, if a sinkhole occurs in your neighborhood, what to do then? Or if there's a tornado siren or a tornado comes through your neighborhood, what do you do during that event? Or a burglary, a small house fire, a wildfire. You can put all these little specific scenarios in your family plan and just write out like a little detailed description on what you would do in that scenario so that everybody's on the same page. Um, Same thing with evacuation plans. Do you have marked evacuation plans that you and your family have picked out? Do you have an exterior evacuation point? Do you have an out of town evacuation point? If you get separated, it's good to have those points already established so that you all know where to go and when to meet up. Same thing with shelter in place locations. Do you have a spot in your house, in your apartment, that is designated as your shelter in place location, such as if there's a tornado, have you designated one bathroom or an interior closet, um, as a shelter in place location? Another thing that you can include in this is your emergency kit checklist. So we'll talk a bit more about building an emergency kit, but I've always found it helpful to keep an emergency kit checklist. That way I'm not forgetting anything. You know, some things expire and you have to replace them. So I think it's good to have checklists so that you're not forgetting anything. And you can also put one of those checklists in the bag. And then important documents. Whether you scan all your important documents, this could be anything from insurance, like health insurance, car insurance, marriage certificate, pet vaccination records, uh, medical records, anything that you find important and that you think would be useful and you don't want to lose if something were to happen. Scan them, put them on a flash drive, put them on an external hard drive, stick them in that emergency kit so that you know what is on there and you know that all your important documents are safe. And personally, when I made my family emergency plan, I listed out what important documents were on that hard drive. So let's get into an example of one. So this was mine that I had made for my master's program. So sorry if it's a little blurry or hard to read. There's a lot of information. But if you look, the first page is super simple. This is something that anybody could have. You could give it to a babysitter, you could give it to grandparents, you give it to children. Um, and this is just gonna be your basic household information, your address, your house phone. If you have a house phone, I don't know if many people still have landlines anymore. But and then members of that household, is it just you? Is it you and kids, you and a partner? Do your parents live with you? And so we use that spot to list out all their names, emails, numbers, and important medical information. And if you have pets, I think something that could be really useful as well is listing out your pets with their breed, color, and size. So that way people can know that you have pets. If this plan is handed off to a firefighter, they'll know in your household that you have two pets and what size, color, what to look for, what to call them by. And then emergency contact information. I had put a local emergency contact that was within my vicinity and then an out of town emergency contact because if something happens and your whole local area is not functioning or if the whole local area you have to evacuate, I think it's smart also to establish that out of town contact. And then emergency meeting places. I like to divide this into four different aspects. Your indoor meeting place, your neighborhood meeting place, your out of neighborhood meeting place, and then your out of town meeting place. So like personally for me, our indoor meeting place was my mom's closet because it was our most interior place. There were no exterior walls. Neighborhood, it can be something as simple as your mailbox at the end of the driveway, just something to get you far enough away from the danger if it's in your home. And then out of neighborhood and out of town, also something to all agree on and understand. So for us, we all knew where our Publix was. Our Publix was you could drive there, but you could also walk there if need be. It was close enough. So we had established the Publix parking lot. Nothing crazy, just super simple and something we could all remember. And then out of town, we just had our grandmother's house. So it was far enough out that it should not be affected if there was a localized emergency where we were. Um, Something that I would recommend as well is to put in a page of important numbers and information for your police department, fire department, poison control, on here, you can also put the phone numbers and policy numbers for your medical insurance, homeowners insurance, just something where all your information can be in one place in case you do have to pack up and go real quick. If there's no Wi-Fi or internet for you to look these up, you have them all in one place if need be. And something you don't have to do, but I think it's smart if you have small children or people who aren't used to your house or your apartment, you can add in figures, take a little screenshot of your apartment complex, of your home from above on Google Images and just track out where all the doors are, where all the windows are that open so that it's there in case anybody needs to know it. Um, so I think that's the big parts. And then we'll go into our hazard specific information. So in my plan, I lived in Florida, right alongside the Everglades. So there's my house, a road, and then the Everglades. Um, so I made sure that this plan was specified towards this. Um, and also smaller things that anybody could deal with. So on mine, I include fire, which I put in both for a small controlled house fire and a large uncontrolled house fire. And then I also put in a spot for Everglades fire. Some of the other aspects that were included were burglary, a hurricane or tropical storm, how to prepare, what to do during the event, what to do after the event if an evacuation is called, flooding, heat wave, and any general medical emergencies. So this is the part of the plan that you can really personalize to your family needs. Every family is going to be different. Every person is going to be different, and no two plans are going to look alike. In mine, there's a lot of medical jargon because both my parents work in the medical field, whereas somebody else may have, say, a firefighter in their family plan, and they'll have a lot more jargon in there. So everything can be personalized to how you need it. Just make sure to keep into consideration what are the likely hazards in your area and what what works best for your family. Okay. So moving on to part two, building an emergency kit. So I cannot stress this enough. Focus on the essentials and personalizing the kit to fit your needs. Some items to consider are basic supplies, and this would be a 72-hour minimum for food and water. You want to at least prepare for 3 days, whether that's you have to stay indoors for 3 days or you have to evacuate for 3 days. You want to make sure you have enough food and water to last you 3 days. And the recommended water amount is 1 gallon per person per day. So if you have 3 people in your household, make sure you have 3 gallons per day to sustain that 1 gallon per day per person. Also, communication and power. Do you have battery packs? Is battery packs going to be something that you want to put in your emergency kit in case in case there's a power outage, you need to be able to charge your phone to get into contact with people. And then anything else like personal needs, which is going to vary person to person. Safety items, do you have a jumper cable for your car? Do you have flashlights? Do you have, if this is something you want, like pepper spray or anything to keep you safer that you think, glow sticks so that people can see where you are. And then cache important documents. This is what I was saying earlier with that flash drive or that hard drive of scanned copies of your important documents. And then always keep some cash on hand. I think if there ever is an issue where card machines don't work, you'll want to have some of that cash on your hands to get you and your family through until those are back up and running. And then comfort items. I think we all know everybody needs comfort items, especially in an emergency. It doesn't matter if you're a kid, an adult. So make sure that you're including those too, whether even if it's just like a little something. But then there's also different types of emergency kits. So you have your family emergency kit, which is your, I would say is your main one. Keep this in your house. You don't touch it. Every once in a while, you can go in and exchange if something's expired, but this stays put. And same thing with a car emergency kit. So you can build a little kit specifically for your car as well in case you're on the road and something happens. Keep jumper cables in there. Keep a blanket, an ice scraper, anything like that. You can also make a pet emergency kit. I have a pet emergency kit for my dog, and it has at least 72 hours of food for her, 72 hours of medication, some toys, a couple treats, a big thing of water in her travel water bowl. Just things to keep in mind because if I have to go, I'm taking her with me. So I might as well have her prepared as well. And then also first aid kit. It doesn't need to be anything fancy, just something to have in your house that's easily accessible. Just bandages, some Neosporin, antibiotic like cream. And if you do need help building kit, FEMA has pre-made checklists and recommendations for building an emergency kit, and the link is there. But you can also just Google like FEMA emergency kit, and it should all pop up. And those will help give you a lot of recommendations and suggestions. So here's how I put my emergency kit into my family plan. So these were all made pre-disaster, and the different what I would want included. So I had my first aid kit, and next to it, I put where I stored it as well, so that I could quickly reference that in case we needed to leave immediately. Like I was saying, my first aid kit was a little had quite a lot in it, but both my parents were in the medical field, so they wanted a lot of specific stuff in it. But just any like basic items that you think you would need. And then my basic emergency kit, I did like flashlights, battery powered radios, candles, batteries, phone charger, battery charging pack, cash, a pocket knife, multi-head screwdriver. You never know what you're going to need. And then important documents. I had listed where they were stored the physical copies and then also um, had that hard drive in the bag as well. And these can multiple things, birth certificates, marriage certificates, wills, passports, social security cards, anything that you think you're going to need in the event that if say your home floods and they all get destroyed, just to have that backup, and in case you can't get them immediately afterwards. And then we had a food and water checklist as well, which contained things. I did a 7 day supply, but really 72 hour like minimum is what I would suggest to get yourself through. So I did like non-perishable items, water, sports drinks, get like the electrolytes. Um, and then my pet emergency kit, food, medicine, vitamins. I think it's also important to note too, if you're on medications or if anybody in your household's on medications, to make note of that, to make sure that you get the medication or to like set a couple pills aside to put in that emergency kit to last you in case you do run out and you're not able to get them. All right. I think the final step is practice your plan. So There are so many different ways that you can practice your plan and make sure that you're keeping yourself and your household up to date on your plan. Um, First, family drills. Um, what do you do in a fire? I mean, we in emergency management, we do exercise all the time. And a lot of times on news or what you'll be seeing around campus is about full scale exercises, these huge, elaborate events that we plan out. But honestly, an exercise can just be you guys sitting around at a table or on the couches and talking through it. It's called tabletop exercise. Do it at home. Super simple. Um, and drills. Like you can practice if there's a fire in the kitchen, where do you go? And see if everybody goes out to your outdoor meeting spot. Just simple drills like that you can do, like fire drill or tornado. You say, there's a tornado coming. Where do we all head to? And see if everybody heads to the same place. Um, so I think those are super important. That way, if an event does happen, you all know what you're doing and you're all prepared before the event. Test your communications. Make sure if you have a radio, make sure your radio's working. Make sure the batteries are working. Your phone. I know some of the newer phones have like the if you don't have service, the now the SOS feature is functional. See if that's turned on your phone. Just test your communications, whether that's radio, phone, computer, pager, whatever it is. Test them to make sure that they're going to work in case something happens. Review and update your plan. I would say if you have major changes, update it. But other than that, just review it like annually. If nothing really has changed, you don't need to necessarily change it, but it's something good to review at least once a year after you initially make it. Make sure everybody's still on the same page. Make sure there's been no drastic changes. And then that leads into the checking supplies. When you're reviewing and updating your plan, make sure that all your supplies are still where they should be. Do you have a can of food that expired that you need to replace? So check those supplies when you review and update your plan. Just keep it all at once. I think it's easier to remember that way. Um, and engage your kids. If you have kids, I think it can definitely be difficult to engage children, especially when they're younger. So you can make it a game. Um, find fun ways to incorporate this into their life because something that will grab their attention. I mean, I don't have kids, so I don't necessarily have any suggestions on how to do that. But I think just finding ways to keep them engaged and keep them interested in this. And honestly, same. And I say engage your kids, but engage yourself, engage any member of your household. Um, you know, get into this plan, really know it. Prepare yourself. We want to build resilience to emergencies, and part of that building resilience is being prepared prior to an emergency happening. So that way, if something does happen, it's not, I guess, for lack of a better term, a free for all. If something happens, and that you're able to bounce back quicker because you were prepared. So. Now, before we wrap up, I want to talk a second about Safe Zone. I'm sure you guys have all seen the emails about Safe Zone, things posted around campus on Safe Zone, but Safe Zone is our new safety app. Um, it can call for emergency help, submit anonymous tips, request a virtual police escort, but this is also how you receive your UK alerts through push or text notification. So everybody who has a university email is automatically signed up for UK alerts, and you'll get that email notification. But if you want text alerts as a faculty, staff, employee, you have to download the SafeZone app and add your phone number manually because just for certain regulations and restrictions, we cannot automatically update or upload staff, faculty, employee phone numbers into this. So you will need to go and download that app and input your phone number manually if you want to receive UK alerts through text message notifications. So I think this is a really great app, and I think it's always good to have a little extra buffer and a little extra nudge and if something happens. So Yeah. Um, if you have any questions on this that you don't think of before the Q&A or on Safe Zone, you can email myself or Sarah, or we have a crisis management preparedness inbox that you can email as well, which is cmp@uky.edu. So feel free to send us any questions if you have, and thank you for listening to this presentation. I really appreciate it.